Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So this is our last lecture. We're going to continue with the medium of exchange. So we started with a barter system. Then we moved to the gold standard. After the gold standard, we moved into the fiat money. Now I would like to talk about, but that fiat money was only domestic fiat money. What does it mean? In 1933, when the US went off the gold standard, we went into fiat money, money that we could create out of thin air. That's only for domestic exchange. Internationally, if Japan or Europe or China or Bangladesh or Colombia, if they have dollar bills, they can bring their dollars to US banks and they could demand their gold. Okay? So fiat was only domestic. The rest of the world was under the international gold standard. So I would like to talk about the international gold standard and then conclude with international fiat. So eventually the world became fiat, okay? So domestically we have gold standard, it became fiat. Internationally it's still gold, but then it becomes fiat. So let's talk about the international gold standard, okay? We didn't talk about the international gold standard. So, as international trade and globalization expanded in the 20th century, right? Transportation cost went up. You know what was the most important factor of international trade to expand? It wasn't transportation cost, but what exactly? Containerization. You know the containers, the idea of putting the goods in containers, that was something, an invention that led for goods and services to be transported. It was an international standard. Many international trade economists consider that was one of the most important invention, as transportation. We started with the steam engine and then more advanced, but containerization, making the containers that you can put them on top of each other, and it was standardized. Anywhere in the world, these containers could be stacked on top of each other, and transportation. So that played a very large role. So all of these inventions, innovation, transportation cost is declining. All of this is taking place in the 20th century, okay? But most governments didn't trust. So when this is happening, there is more exchange. But most governments don't trust each other's currencies. Why? Assume you're in Thailand and you want to buy cars from Vietnam. What was the car that Vietnam is producing? VinFast. Okay, Vietnam is producing a car, great cars, good-looking cars. Okay, it's called VinFast. Okay, I think VinFast. Yeah, look it up, please. Just double check. So assume you're in Thailand. Someone in Thailand wants to buy cars from Vietnam. How is he going to pay? You want to buy cars from Thailand, wants to buy cars from Vietnam. How are they going to pay? They're going to pay with Thai baht because they have Thai baht. So they're going to pay with Thai baht. But would the government or the company or the firm that's producing cars, would you accept Thai baht? No, why not? Why wouldn't you take Thai baht? So I want to buy. So I'm I'm Thailand. You're Vietnam. I want to buy cars from you. I'm going to give you my currency. I'm from Thailand. The Thai currency is called baht, right? Thai baht. So I give you the Thai baht and I want your car, and you say no to me. Why would you say no to me? Well, maybe you can spend it again in the next year. Maybe you can buy mangoes from Thailand, or you can use it for tourism. Maybe other nearby countries. That's, I mean, possibly that's a possibility. What would be another possibility? That another reason for you not accepting Thai baht?
Different currency.
It's a different currency, but how are you going to trade? I mean, you have to accept something. It's a different currency, but you can use it back. You can buy back something from Thailand.
Possibilities is government just like a cease of existing. That would be like,
Okay,
so, yeah, if there's just like this like yeah, I don't know, like war.
There is a political. So I want to simplify what you're saying. One of the main fundamental reasons that you don't want to accept Thai baht, because the Thai government could do what? The next year they can do what? Internally they are fiat. They can do what? They can print money. When the Thai government prints money, you want to come back the next year. What happened to the prices vis-a-vis baht? They all went up. So the baht that you have in your pocket lost its value. So that's why you don't want to accept, because all the countries are doing what? They're inflating domestically. So it's like, I don't want your money, and I really don't know. Because sometimes some currencies are inflated more than other currencies, right? So there is chaos in the world. Okay, so chaos happens. So there is no credible legal recourse that Vietnam could take if Thailand's central bank misbehaves. They can misbehave. They can use their baht and buy cars and bridges and airplanes and everything. And then the next day, people want to come use the baht to get like Thai-made goods and services. They can inflate the product. They can print and print and print, and then they can buy their way, right? So eventually, when you want to bring the money back, the values have gone relatively up. So the value of the baht is declining. So it's like, so you're worse off. You don't want that, right? So something needed to be done because world trade has come to a standstill. When it was the gold standard, that's fine. Every government was sticking to having gold behind it. So I can give you the Thai baht. I know I'm going to get certain weight of gold, right? But when they went fiat, people started distrusting. Trade is coming to a standstill, right? There's friction. Something needed to be done. So what was done is what we call the Bretton Woods Agreement. So in 1944, all the countries got together. I forgot how many countries, but like a big chunk of countries, the most industrialized countries, they all came together and they said, okay, we have to create an international medium of exchange where everyone is trusting it, okay? And obviously, in 1944, it was the end of World War II, and which country came up winning and prosperous, right? The United States, okay? The United States won the war. It wasn't itself targeted by, the war, the mainland at least, right? So the United States is coming as a victor, okay? Economically dominant, militarily dominant. So all the countries got together and decided to do what? To make the dollar the official medium of exchange. And the agreement was that the dollar is backed by gold. So all the countries in the world, they use the dollar. So if you want to buy, if Thailand wants to buy cars from Vietnam, they use dollars because they want liquidity, right? Gold is not liquid, it's heavy. So they use dollars. So now, how does Thailand acquires dollars? By or giving their gold to the USA and getting dollars. Now their gold is safe because their gold, why is their gold safe in the US? It's safe because in the agreement it says that every dollar is backed by gold. So there's no inflation, there is no theft. Okay, every dollar is backed by gold. As a matter of fact, every ounce of gold is equal to $35. 1944, the world adopted the international gold standard. The medium of exchange became the dollar. So countries around the world, they started sending their gold to the US and getting in return US dollars. And everyone is sure, guaranteed that that money cannot be inflated. It's an agreement that it's backed by gold. Okay, that's the agreement that the US came up with. So all the currencies of the world were packed to the US dollar, which was itself convertible to gold. Now you can use domestically your own currencies, but your currencies are also packed. It's a fixed exchange rate between the dollar and your domestic currency. Okay, so no country could manipulate the monetary system because the US is guaranteeing that every single dollar on planet Earth, right, outside of the United States is pegged, is worth $35 to the gold. So in a sense, the Bretton Woods system created an international gold-backed monetary system. Now, the biggest heist in the history of humanity. How stupid can you be? Thailand and Vietnam, your neighbors, culturally closed, you're more friendly. Why would you trust the US? They're going to keep their promise and keep the gold at $35 per ounce and backed by gold. Okay? They sent all the gold. Now, the US government in 1933 already took all the gold. When people, residents, they went to the bank in 1933, they said, this is the dollar, give me the gold. They said, forget about it. So all the gold is confiscated. Now they got all the gold of the world. Now what happens? Obviously, naturally, how stupid the rest of the world is. Obviously, during this time, what was the United States doing? They were cheating. So they were cheating. What does it mean, cheating? The US is cheating, right? What it means is that the US is printing more and more dollars. They never stopped printing. They were printing it already domestically. We were off the gold standard. They continued printing. Now a decade, 2 decades. So by 1971, the US had only 10 billion in gold reserves, but they printed $60 billion. Okay, so from how many years is that? From 1971 to, by 1971, 44, 38 years, something like that. One generation, 25, 30, 35 years, they already bypassed a 10 billion in gold is only in the US vaults, but they already had printed 60 billion, 6 times more data. So the biggest heist.
Exporting their inflation.
Oh, yes, that's the biggest US export. Countries like France began to suspect that the US is doing what? Inflating. They actually, you know what they did? They sent a warship to New York.
Actually went and got some.
Yeah, they didn't send a friendly ship. There was going to be a war. They sent a warship to New York because the gold was in New York initially in 1971. Not too long ago, okay? This is not less than, this is 1970. They sent a warship. The French Navy sent a warship, okay, to get their gold. Other nations starting following suit. They started demanding what? Their gold. So what happened in the world? There was a run on the gold or gold run. Countries were coming to the US. Actually, I think the French got their gold.
They did. That's why
they did. Yeah, because the French got the gold and the rest of the world realized that the US is cheating. They had multiplied their printing money by 6 times, 60 billion for a 10 billion. So then what happens next? Richard Nixon does what? Right away. Before the rest of the world comes, they get their gold. Richard Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar to the gold. You know what he said to the rest of the world? F you. You get to keep the dollars. You can spend it in the world, but you'll never get your gold back. The biggest heist in the history of humanity is all this wealth is taken away from the rest of the world. And the US is cheating and cheating and cheating and printing. And how dumb and dumb and dumb the rest of the world is, right? For trusting a foreign country. After 27 years, that Bretton Woods is dead. Nixon said, no more. We call it closing the window of the convertibility of the gold to the dollar. There is a window at the banks. You know, they have windows. You go to the window, you give them your receipt, the dollar, you get the gold. That window was closed, closing the window of the convertibility of the dollar to the gold. He suspended it. Rothbard called this the greatest default in history. I call it the greatest heist in history. Refused to honor its international gold obligation. What could the rest of the world do? Nothing. The US is the strongest army in the world, the most prosperous. You want to be US's enemy? You're doing trade. You have all the dollars in your reserves. That's why US is the reserve currency of the world. Every country has a reserve. The reserves, when they want to buy foreign goods and services, they use the dollar. When China wants to buy gasoline from Saudi Arabia, they have to use dollars, right? They call it the reserve currency. Some countries also have gold in their reserve currency, right? They have other assets. But the dollar, until now, you know, like Japan has over $1 trillion in US bonds. China has about 700-800 billion. I mean, there's more money outside of dollars, outside of the US than in the US. Imagine. So what happened right then, right there? What was born? International fiat money was born, okay? So let's think a little bit about the international fiat money. The United States obviously keeps cheating and cheating. Now they want off the gold standard. The rest of the world has what? They have still dollars. What do they do with the dollar? The US is not exchanging it for gold. They want to get rid of it. But everybody wants to get rid of it. If everybody wants to get rid of it, then what happens to the value of the dollar? If everybody's selling it, goes down. It's like you hurt yourself. You're trapped. If you want to go to the market and dump all the dollars, then the dollar value goes down. By the time you start dumping your last dollar, it would be valueless. And the rest of the world would do the same thing. Now they're stuck. They don't know what to do. They want to dump it little by little. They want to get, but there's no buyers. Okay, somebody has to buy it. No one is buying it. Now countries around the world are gathering together. They're coming out with an alternative medium of exchange, which is BRICS, right? 20, 30 countries, they want to join. It's in the works. I don't know if it works out or not. But there is a distrust of the dollar. But it took them 27, 8, 40 years to realize, even past 1971, they're stuck, right? They can't do anything. Now, technically speaking, I think Baskin mentioned that the biggest US export is inflation. So after 71 went off the gold standard, the US is still doing what? We're still printing and printing. So what's happening to all the reserves in the world? Their value is still going down and down and down. These people gave their gold. Now they're getting papers who's losing value every day, every minute, every second. The value of the dollar is declining. That's why we have inflation. Gas was $1, $2 for a gallon. Now it's $6, $7, right? I mean, price of milk is doubling, tripling. Price of housing is tripling every 8, 9, 10 years. Okay, prices are going up. Imagine how much devalued their currency is becoming. They have $1 million, now it's worth like 200,000. Then it's going to be worth 100,000. So we really bankrupted. So we are exporting inflation. The biggest US export is inflation. Because when you print money over here, what happens to the dollars all around the world? They lose value, okay? We are, in a way, taxing the rest of the world. Because if you remember, inflating the money supply is like taxing you, extracting wealth from you. So the US is extracting wealth from the rest of the world. Since 1971, 50 years, 55 years. And the rest of the world, now they're realizing they have to come up with an alternative. What are they doing? Dormant? Are you dormant? Are you sleeping? What is Colombia doing about this? Nothing? Okay. What can countries do? Very little, not much. The Federal Reserve disrupts international. What's happening when the federal government is printing money? Cantillon effect is taking place. Prices are being distorted. People want to dump it out. It's creating disharmony in the world. Harmonious, you remember Durkheim, right? Weber, the harmony, that specialization and trade. Medium of exchange facilitates trade. When medium of exchange is becoming distortory, international trade is lagging behind. People don't trust each other's currency. People, they want $1. Imagine how worse the rest of the world is, how distrustful citizens of other countries are, that they still prefer the dollar over their domestic currency. That's why you travel in most countries of the world, you give them dollar, they'll accept it. You go to Lebanon, you give them $1, they accept it. You go to travel to Mexico, you give them $1, everybody wants dollars. Because they even distrust their own currencies more than they distrust the governments. Because other currencies, other governments are inflating even more than the US is inflating. The only benefit of the US is that the US dollars are spread out. We're taxing internationally, but they're only taxing domestically, okay? But governments around, the citizens around the world, they don't trust their currencies. Still, the US dollar is considered to be the stablest after all of this. Okay, so imagine how bad is the rest of the world. Okay, just the US is smart because they're taxing internationally. These other countries are taxing it. Harmony does not lie in diplomacy. You know, we have departments, diplomacy and world affairs, universities, they have like all kinds of bachelor's degree. You know, peace is not in diplomacy. We can just come together and say, oh, let's like one another. Peace happens praxionomically. It evolves in the marketplace, right? Its genesis in the market activity. It's mutually beneficial exchange, trades. If you want peace in the world, you don't need to sit down and negotiate peace, okay? Get rid of fiat money, get rid government holds of the mediums of exchange. That will facilitate more deeper of division of labor, more interconnectedness, interdependency, and more harmony will be achieved when we have money under the freedom principle, okay? We want money under the freedom principle. Now, that's like a historical. Now I would like to spend a few minutes talk about the actual mechanics of money. How does the government create money? How does the government create money? Who's printing money? Why would they? Federal Reserve, they don't have the right to print money out of, like, they can just decide, oh, I want to print money. So what's the mechanics? That's what I want to talk about, okay? Like step by step, the relationships between the various government agencies where printing money comes into place. I'm calling this the money mechanics. Step number one. US government spends more than it receives from taxes, right? They spend on what? Waging wars, welfare programs, warfare, welfare, because that justifies their existence. They create threat, external threat, so they say we need to exist to protect you. They say centralized security is more efficient than a decentralized one. And also, they want to help out, they want to redistribute wealth, right? So in a democracy, the median voter model, right, would be the winning the votes if you can target and if you can, redistribute wealth from one group to another group. That's a mechanism for you to justify your existence because people are going to vote for you. If I'm going to vote for someone that was going to give me money, steal from other people, then I'm most likely going to vote for that person so I can get more money, right? So it's the welfare warfare. So US governments, right, they want to spend more money for these purposes. Now, the US money, the government cannot actually print, okay? The US government is not printing money. The US government tells the Treasury, okay, the Treasury. It's not the Fed, it's the Treasury. There's a distinction. It tells Treasury to issue Treasury bills, IOU. So the US government wants money to wage wars for welfare program. How does it raise money? It creates pieces of papers, an IOU. It tells the Treasury, print me IOUs. And then what do? The Treasury gives this to its citizens, and then it gets dollars, right? So IOU, it's a piece of paper. It's called 110 on it. So I give it to you, and the agreement is 1 year from now, you're going to give me that piece of paper, and I'm going to give you $110 or $105. Treasury bills, I think, pay 4%, 3%, 5%, something like that. So you get 3% out of your $100. So they take that money and they do what? They spend it. Welfare, warfare program. So the Treasury sells this to the commercial banks, right? It gives the IOU, the Treasury bills it gives it to investment banks. Foreign governments, a lot of foreign governments buy Treasury bills. Even the Fed, I will get to this later on, or even individual citizens, you can go buy government Treasury bills. So they take the dollars because they want to spend it. The taxes are not enough. Now the Treasury collects all the money and pays government expenditure, right? Now, new money has not been created. It's a loan. I'm giving you an IOU, I'm taking a loan. No new money has been created. Yes?
The government has two ways of getting money, taxing and borrowing.
Taxing and
Stealing and borrowing.
Well, that's what they're going to do next. So there is no inflation, there's nothing. The government is borrowing money. Now, after 1 year, you want your money back. The agreement, which is the bond, expired. It's a 1-year agreement. I'm giving you an IOU for 1 year. You give me your $100. You're a citizen. After 1 year, I have to give you the $110. After 1 year, I have to give you $110. Does the US government have money? No. Where are they? How are they going to pay you back? That's when they tell the Fed to do what? Cover the debt. The US government in the Constitution doesn't have the right to print money. They can They don't have the right to print money. They can incur an expenditure. They can incur a debt. The IOU is what? A debt. So I'm incurring a debt. Who's going to pay the debt? That's when they tell the Fed to do what? Cover the debt. That's when the Fed, with a click of a button, covers the billions of dollars of the IOUs that are outstanding in the world. With a click of button. Usually the money is not physical, it's a digital money that goes into the banks that borrowed the IOUs. And then some of the banks do what? They turn around, they said, I want this digitized money to be actual paper money, because the banks during like Christmas times, holiday times, etc., New Year's, they want more liquidity. So they send some of the digital money to the Fed, and the Fed tells, convert this into actual paper money. So that's how paper money enters the marketplace. So these are the steps of how new money comes into existence.
I don't want to jump ahead, but is it similar to the idea of like the branches of government and the division of power, that it's kind of semantics, like the executive branch can't declare war, but Congress has the right to declare war, and this is just, even though they're all part of the government, the state, and they work together. Is this kind of
Yes.
It's just like the semantics?
Yes. Like the government cannot print money, but the government could incur a debt. I mean, it's a loophole, right? I mean, you can't print money. So every time, technically, when the US government writes you a check, technically there is no money behind it. It's like it's going to bounce. There's like zero. But once you incur a debt and you go deposit that debt, you want the money, that's when, right, the government will tell, pay the debt. Now the Fed prints money, pays the debt. So it's like a loophole in the system, right, that they found, because the Constitution forbids the US government to print money. So they found they bypass it. They say, we're not, because in the Constitution also it says they can incur a debt. They didn't understand that how aggressive these governments are going to be, how centralization is going to take place, how abusive they're going to be by printing money, going off the gold standard, right? They didn't anticipate all this like loopholes, maneuvers that the centralized authorities will eventually take. So that's how money. So step one, the US government wants money more than their taxes. It tells the Treasury to issue IOUs to the people and the banks. I give you, and they take all the money. The Treasury gives it to the government wages wars, welfare programs, whatever the government programs, whatever they want to do. Then after 1 year, the IOU comes to fruition, right? I mean, that's the date of expiration date. They want to pay now the IOUs. The government doesn't have money. It tells the Fed, print money or pay off the debt. The paying off the debt is digital. Okay, with a click of a button, billions of dollars have been created. And sometimes those digital monies could be in the form of a print if the recipients, they want printed money, paper money. That's what happens. The Fed enters the picture. The Fed buys the Treasury bills in the open market. Okay, so how is the debt liability done? The Fed buys the Treasury bill. What is buying? Basically giving money, taking the IOUs out of the market, okay? The Fed credits the banks electronically. It creates bank reserves electronically, sometimes physically. Trillions in new reserves are created. They are created out of thin air. Just with a press of a button, government is creating this money. The money base expands, and this is called inflation, okay? So if inflation is an expenditure of the money base, okay? Increasing the money supply is inflation. Now that the banks have higher reserves, they do what? They lend more money out, right? The banks have higher reserves. They lend their money out. This creates expansion in the market, not backed by real savings. Through fractional reserve banking, which I don't want to talk too much of it because we spoke about fractional reserve banking in the previous lecture. What is fractional reserve banking? Basically, fractional reserve banking is not from your savings account. If I have savings account and you borrow money, the bank takes my savings account, gives it to a thing, that's a loan. But my deposit account, my checking account, if I deposit $100 in my checking account, from my checking account, $90 out of the $100 is being loaned out. So in my mind, in the businessman mind, I have access to that money. But that money technically is not there. Not technically, realistically is not there. It's been loaned out, and then it's been loaned out again, and then loaned out again. $100 deposit under 10% reserve ratio. You have to keep the 10% in the bank. The other 90%, the banks could loan it out. $100 under 10% reserve ratio creates $1,000 worth of dollars. So most of the inflation is not coming from government actually printing money, but it's actually coming from the fractional reserve system. Now, you might say to me, but that's a market phenomenon. The banks are doing it. Well, the government is facilitating that because the government has forbid people to do a run on the bank. We cannot all go together to the bank. I cannot say, guys, Chase Bank is doing bad investments, right? And they're going to go bankrupt. Let's all go to the bank and pick up our dollars because they're going bankrupt. Then I would be a criminal activity. I could be imprisoned for that. So the government is forbidding a mechanism that constrains the bank from doing what? Loaning out, being loaned out all the time. It's very risky. In the normal state of affairs, I don't want to risky loan out all. But if the government saying there is no run on the bank, so I know not everybody is going to come ask for their money. So the money is not there, but you come individually, you ask. That 10% covers individual daily transactions. But if we all go to the bank, the money is not there. But the government has protected the banks. So there's artificial protection. That's where fractional reserve is a standing system. Okay. And number two, why do we have fractional reserve banking system? Because the government has said banks will never go bankrupt. That's why it's FDIC insured. What business do you have? You're insuring someone's deposit. No one is insuring my business investments. I open a restaurant, I can go bankrupt. No one is insuring. Why is the government involved in insuring that your money in the bank? You know what I'm saying? Why doesn't the government insure my money in a business transaction? That's not insured by banking. So the banks, the government is facilitating the fractional reserve banking system that we're experiencing. In a free market environment, right, there'll be agencies, assurance companies, insurance companies, they will oversee. If the banks overland, if I want a 100% reserve banking system, then 100% of your money will be there, right? So depends. So the marketplace decides what kind of a fraction, what percentage should be stay in the bank. And by the way, why would you want your checking deposits to be loaned out when you're not earning interest on it? There's no benefit to you. You can put it in your savings. That's lending money, borrowing, lending, you make interest rate. But your checking account, you don't want it to be loaned out. There's no benefit. There is only risk that they can go bankrupt. So in a real world, there will be 100% reserve ratio in your checking account because people want 100% the money to be there. Because I have no benefit. Otherwise, I'll put my money in a savings account, then I can earn interest on it. And I know there is a risk associated. It's being loaned out, right? CD accounts, things like that. You can lose it. So in a market environment, there'll be 100% reserve ratio because that's what people's preferences are. But this, under the fractional reserve banking system, when $100 deposit is being loaned out, then it's being loaned out again and again, it inflates the money supply. When prices are going up, we talked about it creates the boom-bust cycle that we discussed earlier. This is the business cycle. Fed expands credit. Entrepreneurs correlate low interest rate with high savings. What happens when there is too much money in the market, too much printed money in the market? What happens to the banks have too much liquidity, too much money because the government's printing it. What happens to the interest rate? The price of money, when there is too much of it, the interest rate goes down. When the interest rate goes down, then businessmen do what? They go and borrow more and more. Interest rate is low. They borrow more and more. When they borrow more and more, they expand their businesses. That's creating what? A boom. The businessmen, when they're expanding their businesses, they're building more cars, more hotels, more casinos. They're anticipating more and more demand into the future because in a real world, interest rate only goes down when savings go up. When savings go up, there is too much money, so the value of the savings go down. So people are saying, businessmen are saying, oh, like the interest rate is going down, that means savings are going up. Eventually, people are going to draw on their savings and go spend it. So they want to get ready for that expenditure, expected expenditure. But that day never comes. because that was an artificial lowering of the interest rate. So in the long run, they realized that they have overproduced. Now they have to lay off the workers. They have to get rid of the inventories. They have to shut down the restaurants and the businesses and all the expansions that they had. That's the bust phase. So the boom bust phase is a government political phenomena. It is not a market phenomena. Okay, that's what this slides explain. And that's the end. We have about 10 minutes. So I just want to finish with this. So we said commodity money, gold money is deflationary. It's bad, right? If I have gold, if I have Bitcoin, is deflationary. I'm not spending it. It's just sitting idle. I'm making more and more money without creating any value. Okay, but I'm not spending it. So market activity is declining. Gold is there. So we talked about the negative implications of not inflationary, but deflationary money. We also talked about the negative consequences of inflationary money. Artificially, prices are going up. Artificially, government creates this inflation. There is more wars. So we talked about the negative implications of deflationary money and inflationary money. Then you might want to ask what? What is the best? Money. So what is the best medium of exchange? The best medium of exchange is a medium of exchange that neither inflates nor deflates. So what would that be? So it's not gold, it's not silver, it's not fiat money, it's not Bitcoin. What is it then? Can you come up with a money that neither inflates nor deflates? A money that grows at the same rate as market activity. Because when there is globalization, market activity is increasing, there is more exchange, people want liquidity, right? So we want a type of money that its quantity, its stock is going up at the same rate as market activity. That means that money must be generated not in the external world under some mountains digging and picking up the gold, now artificially by fiat, but it has its inception must be praxionomic. Praxionomically, a medium of exchange emerges in the marketplace that goes in tandem with market activity, that aligns with the volume of exchange. What would that be? What's the medium of exchange that neither inflates nor deflates, that increases at the same rate as market activity? That means it is endogenous to the market. It's determined in the market at the moment of action. Those are the implications of human action we talked about in pillar number 1. Remember I said economics is the implication of human action. From one principle, we're able to use all these theorems. So money is endogenous to the market. Okay, market activity, it's endogenous. It increases or decreases in alignment, in tandem with market activity, so that it neither inflates nor deflates. What is that money that's coming up? The last pillar, we're going to talk about that money that increases and decreases in tandem with market activity. And then that's going to open up our door towards decentralization of security, arbitration, mediation, and things like that. So that's coming up in pillar number 9 or 10. So you have to wait, okay? So I'm going to stop here. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Another question, but can I please see your step 2 slide of money mechanics? Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? Online questions? Okay. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Okay, instead of doing it a Saturday, Sunday, once a month, we're going to do it every 2 weeks on Saturdays. That's why Sunday you can have your family gatherings and activities. Okay, but we'll send you an official email telling you exactly, the time, location. We'll let everyone know. It will be uploaded on our syllabus. You'll get an email. But just a heads up. Okay, have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
You even need to know what the market is. The country each bringing, like whatever's stopping it from The market for people coming up with you.
You can come up, you'll be considered a domestic terrorist if you come up with your own medium of exchange. On the dollar, it says this is a legal tender. So if I owe you.
Remove government.
Oh,
Will that money?
yes. Yeah. But we haven't removed the government to know what it is. But deductively, I'm going to explain to you what it would look like. If the government goes away, I will tell you deductively this is how it looks like. Okay.